Good, happy Wednesday afternoon. I'm Riley King, and welcome to this afternoon edition of the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. We have a lot of news this afternoon, so let's begin. First up, we begin with breaking news. Bernie Sanders suspends his presidential campaign. Senator Bernie Sanders ended his presidential campaign on Wednesday, clearing Joe Biden's path to the Democratic nomination and a showdown with President Donald Trump in November. COVID-19 in New Hampshire. What you need to know. Let's take a look. And here is that COVID-19 in New Hampshire information. There are 747 number of people in New Hampshire who have tested positive for COVID-19. 3,099,929 number of people in the United States who have tested positive. 13 number of deaths from COVID-19 in New Hampshire. 108 number of people who have tested positive for COVID-19 in New Hampshire, and 12,911 number of deaths from COVID-19 in the United States. This map of New Hampshire shows where the cases are in each town and city. Nashua has 72 cases of COVID-19. New cases each day in New Hampshire. In the purple, daily new positive COVID-19 cases. In the orange, new hospitalizations. And in the red are the deaths. Your common symptoms: fever, cough, and difficult breathing. How it spreads, and prevention tips. Be sure to stay with the Riley King Network for the latest of your COVID-19 information. Crews battle 2-alarm house fire in Wolfboro. Let's take a listen to that video from WR News 9.
Take control of your life and become a corrections officer with the New Hampshire Department of Corrections. We have immediate openings for new recruits. Apply today.
A Wolfboro fire is on the scene of this 2-alarm house fire on Pleasant Road. Crews found the heavy fire in the basement of the home when they arrived just before 3 this morning. Officials say the fire had spread to the first floor. One person was in the home during the fire, but they say the person has escaped without injury.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. White House Coronavirus Response Coordinator Dr. Deborah updates George Stephanopoulos on the spread of the virus. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News / Good Morning America.
We're joined now by Dr. Deborah Birx from the White House Coronavirus Task Force. Dr. Birx, thank you for joining us this morning. We just had that report right there that the National Committee on Medical Intelligence first compiled evidence of a cataclysmic coronavirus event in China back in November. They briefed it to the military. They briefed it to the White House. So why wasn't more action taken more quickly?
Well, I have to say, I wasn't here during any of those events. I was working in sub-Saharan Africa on HIV/AIDS, so I don't really know the situational awareness around that report.
Okay, well, we'll follow up with the White House later. Let me ask you, though, about this potential threat from the president to cut off funding for the World Health Organization. Does that make sense at this moment?
You know, in the history of the United States and the World Health Organization, we have had times when we've done really in-depth analysis of what has happened. When the president said he was holding funds, he didn't say he was restricting and keeping funds permanently away, but instead said, let's investigate what happened. Let's see what happened in our reporting. We've done that before with previous outbreaks and previous issues that have occurred at WHO.
So there will not be a suspension of funding at this point?
So, we give our contribution annually. The United States is the largest contributor. We always have been, just as we are the largest contributor to a lot of different multilateral organizations. I think that the president wants to complete an investigation of what happened during this current outbreak. Believe me, they already have their continuation funds from last year. So this is a year-by-year commitment to the WHO. This is our required commitment. There's also voluntary commitments that we've made to the WHO through history, including over the last couple of years for HIV, malaria, TB, so a whole series of diseases.
Let's talk about the spread of the virus right now. What are the most encouraging signs you're seeing right now, and which hotspots give you the most concern?
So we track on a county-by-county as well as hotspot metro area. We want to make sure we also don't miss any rural areas. So we were tracking for small outbreaks in rural areas, and the health commissioners and the local governments have handled those superbly, and we're very confident that those were single outbreaks. And then we're tracking the large metro areas. You know, we look at daily case reporting, but I think it's really important that we look at those not only as single days, but a combination of days, and really look for trends. We also look at our testing data to see whether the number of test positives have started to decrease, because we're doing a large amount of testing now. So we integrate all of that data. We are concerned about the metro area of Washington and Baltimore, and we're concerned right now about the Philadelphia area. All of our previous areas seem to be steady, at least, and then certainly we're looking very carefully at California and Washington to really understand how they've been able, as a community of Americans, to mitigate so well.
Given what we're learning about all that, is it realistic to think that the guidelines could actually be relaxed by May 1st, or is it going to go on far longer than that?
So we're doing a series of clear investigations of what happened in Washington and LA, and what does that mean, and how you keep the number of cases down. We're also looking very carefully at rolling out and hopefully having soon, within the next 10 or 14 days, an antibody test, so we can really tell how many Americans were asymptomatic and infected. This makes a very big difference in really understanding who can go back to work and how they can go back to work. And so all of those pieces need to come together over the next couple of weeks.
And finally, we all learned that your infant granddaughter was suffering from a high fever over the weekend. You weren't able to go see her. How's she doing now?
Oh, thank you very much. Fortunately, she got the rash of roseola yesterday, which was very reassuring. When you make diagnosis essentially by telemedicine at distance, and it's your own granddaughter, you are very nervous, particularly with the high fever associated with COVID-19. I knew she hadn't been out of the house, and that whole house has been quarantined, but still, you worry terribly, so thank you.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And that does it for this afternoon edition of the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. Thank you for watching this afternoon edition. Have a great rest of your afternoon, everyone. I'll see you back here later on today for another newscast. And I'll have a news report coming up in a little bit. Goodbye.